Hello and welcome to Open Mic UK. This is our second episode. Myself, Ramsey Chiri, I'm a psychic medium, and my co-host, Kathy Pratt. Kathy, welcome. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not muted. I'm a mystic artist. I'm in Vermont, USA.
And I'm in Montreal, and we have our lovely guest today, Jennifer. Welcome. She's from close to Ottawa, so we're in different places today. Jen, welcome to our show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Sure. So I am a registered psychotherapist, a certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach, and I use human design, which we're going to talk about today in my practice to help people really align with authentically who we're meant to be. We each have our own unique design, and I think sometimes we get so caught up in the conditioning of the world that we don't actually give ourselves an opportunity to live that unique design.
Absolutely. And the good part about what you do is it opens up the eyes of the person of who they are, where they stand within their community and within their, the small family portion and the community as a whole. And you did one reading for me of the human design. I think it took us like over an hour or so. And if I recall, you still had more to say.
Oh yeah. You can't go over everything it has to offer in an hour. Not at all. I know a lot of readers will do, a long session, like a few hour session, and go over everything. I believe that is just too much overwhelm for people, right? That's an information dump that takes a long time to process, coming at it from a mental health perspective, right? As a psychotherapist and counselor, I really feel that going, little bit by little bit, and then allowing time for integration, right? To really contemplate what was talked about, see what resonates, what doesn't, and being able to really experiment with it is the best way of kind of diving in.
Diving in is the right term.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's fascinating.
I have a question. Right? Since you're a psychotherapist and a counselor, does this is this like a left turn for you? That's very different from. I mean, there's a lot of education in that and expertise in getting those certifications. Why add this into the mix?
Yeah, I don't find it's a turn at all. I think it's a beautiful integration.
So it would be like going to a more holistic doctor. They just have more tools in their kit.
Exactly. And that's my practice, my holistic self, really being able to embrace all of what we are, mind, body, and spirit. Right. And the beautiful thing with human design that I have found is I have yet to have a session with somebody and have them go, no, that doesn't resonate. Right? So we go through this and people will be like, wow, I've always known that about myself, but I've never really given myself permission to live that. Right? And so when we talk about mental health and mental wellness and what that looks like, we recognize that if we're not giving ourselves permission to be authentically who we already know we are, we're going to run into suffering, right? That dis-ease that comes up when we don't allow ourselves to be authentically us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here we have, well, first of all, thanks everyone for joining in. Thank you for being online. And that only happens when you put the wrong birth time in. Teasing you. No, okay, so.
Yeah, the birth date and time is very important.
So if you're using things based on birth date and time of birth, is that kind of pure astrology? Because that's what astrology uses when they do the charts and those graphs and link it to the
Yeah.
planets?
Well, similar to astrology, and this is using the tropical, we can use the sidereal as well, but when it was originally formed, Ra got the insights from the voice. It came in, it was through tropical. So default is tropical, but we can use other systems to do the charting. But yeah, we look at your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location of birth in order to pull your chart, right? And so we will look at, and I had this little thing I was showing you.
Here, let me spot you. Here you go.
Okay. So when we're looking at human design in the body graph, this is what we're looking at. So anybody who's seen this is human design right here. But it's really neat in the sense that we have, if you can see, you've got like the astrological symbols there. We've got all of the symbols of the I Ching here. We've got the 9 chakra system as opposed to a 9 center versus a 7 chakra system. So it aligns with the chakras, but it's a little bit different. And what we're looking at is the placement of the sun and the moon, the nodes, the planets at our time of birth. But then we're also looking at them 3 months prior to our time of birth. And so we've got 2 different sets of astrological data that we look at. At time of birth, we're looking at our personality. These are going to be traits that you look at and you go, yeah, it's me. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's me. Right? On the other side of that is more of the unconscious side. And so those are going to be like, yeah, people tell me that. Yeah, I've heard that about myself before. Right? But we may not be as consciously aware of it in the moment.
Yeah, it brings awareness to who we are, which is I was going to say trigger. It's not a trigger, but it's a good pointer so that we are able to work on ourselves and better ourselves, and basically move forward on our spiritual path.
Yeah.
I personally found it like very, very intriguing. And after an hour and so with you and Tanis, by the way, Tanis will be on next show in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
After spending that time with you guys, my perspective has changed about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, for the listeners, I'm a manifestor generator. So if the electricity goes off, I run. Isn't that what it means?
If only we could just plug on in like that. That's that projector of me speaking, talking about plugging in again. Oh my. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful, right? There's 4 main types. They're called aura types, right? So we've got generators, which are 70% of the population. And Ramsey, you're part of that because manifesting generators and generators are both part of that kind of generating umbrella. And then we've got projectors. That's about 20% or so of the population. So that's me. And then we've got our manifestors, which are about 10% of the population, and reflectors, which are just under 1% of the population. So obviously, one of those is they're all little point this and point that, but yeah. So those are our main aura types. And the more that we get to know what that is for us, we begin to understand how our energy impacts not only ourselves, but all of those that we come in contact with, right? And why, I might walk into the room and this, person feels in this kind of particular way. It kind of gives insight into all of that.
Would you be able to, and I know they're deep, but could we go over what those 4 categories mean?
Yeah.
In general, so that the audience could just understand what it is. Because I'm telling you, the minute we said human design, everybody's started to light up and then go, oh my God, what is this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's take a step back and then we'll get into that. So I'll just give you a little kind of history. Mm-hmm. So human design was channeled in 1960s. I'm gonna have to double check my dates. And Ra Uruhu, he was Robert Allen. I can't say his last name before he changed his name. And he, 1987. That's what it was. He was actually on an island in Spain, and he had this experience with what he called the voice. And this information, this kind of download, as we say, came in, and he began to understand the science of differentiation, what it is to really bring a lot of these systems together, and understand how they make up who we are, right? And so when we look at the chart as a whole, we've got, like I said, the 9 centers that we look at. We have our type, our aura type, our profile. So we're looking at the potential for 26 different activations. We're looking at 13 planetary imprints. We're looking at 36 channels. We're looking at 64 gates. This is part of the I Ching hexagram with all 6 lines. So, that's way more, right? And so we look at all of these like substructures as well and realize that, we're not simple beings, right? And so even though we have these 4 main aura types, we still show up so differently. And our design is completely unique. So one generator to another generator, sure, they're going to have commonalities, but they are not going to be the 2 of the same person in any way, shape, or form. Right. And I think that that's a really beautiful piece. There's anybody who really wants to deep dive into human design, I'll just show you right now. This is the go-to. It's the definitive book of human design and the science of differentiation. And this really breaks down a lot of the transmission that Ra receives. Although there's a ton more information out there, this will give you all the basics that you need. And in here, the author, Linda Brunel, has a comment that she made. She said, in a perfect world, manifestors get things started. Projectors guide the process. Generators provide the energy to realize or complete. And reflectors tell everybody how well it's going. Right? So when we break it down, manifestors are here to initiate. Again, we're looking at, about 10% of the population, and they have the energy to just go for it. Now think about this. 10% of the population actually has the energy to just go and permission to just go. They have to inform people what they're doing. Otherwise, they're going to hit lots of roadblocks, but they have that capacity and that energy. Now, how much of us are told, just go for it. Just do it, right? That's that Nike thing. Just do it. Okay. 70% of the world's population, well, actually, 90% of the world's population isn't made that way. Okay. 70% of the world's population has to respond. Okay. They can't just go for it. They have to have something in their environment that triggers them to respond. Right? And in that responding, they're going to go, yeah, that's for me, or not for me. Right? But because we're all told, we're all conditioned, just do it, just go for it, push, push, push. That's the only way that you're going to achieve anything. That means that a majority of our world lives out of alignment.
I see.
Okay. So can you imagine that moment that you realize, wait a minute, I'm not meant to push. I am meant to live in a way that lights me up. And when I have something to respond to, that's my Mac doing its thing. When I have something to respond to, then I go. Then I pour my energy into it, and I have enough energy to light me up and to move me forward, and I can keep going with it. Right?
How freeing.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And when we think about it, right? So sacral, pure generators have a sacral authority. And I don't think we're going to have time to get into all the authorities and everything today, too. But basically what that means is they need to ask themselves if something is good for them or not, with a yes or no question, right? Do I want to join the show? Yes. I'm not a generator, but if I was, it would have been an right? But how many times do people have this experience where somebody says, hey, can you do this? And every part of you goes, I really can't. And the mind gets in the way. Yeah, but, you really should. And it would be a good thing for you to do. And, this person did that for you. And don't you think that maybe this would be right? And now all of a sudden we're investing our energy in something that every part of us is saying no to. What is that going to do? Right? That generator energy that you have that's just going to plug in when the power goes out, that thing is drained. Yeah. Right? And until you do something that actually lights you up, you're not going to be able to rebuild that energy.
Yeah, I get that. I get that 100%. I get that. January, February, I had zero energy to do anything. Anything. And then came April, actually March, towards the end of it, when I freed myself. April 4th, we're gonna go live. That's it. Like, what?
I love it.
No hellos, no, let's discuss it. Let's do an analysis. How it's gonna, no, we're going live. That's it. We're done.
Right? Because at some point that energy was there for you that said, hey, do you want to do this live thing? And you went, oh yeah. Yes, most definitely. That's what I want.
Yeah. And now we drive things and we work them together. Although I'm a manifestor generator, but I try things with the team. We work together. We move forward. Yeah. Like you said, there's a plan. People are communicated the plan too, so that they are part of the plan and not just a watcher on the side. Oh yeah, this is nice happening. No, they're actually part of the whole thing, and basically that's what defines who I am right now. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with me.
And we try to keep it feeling good.
100%, but that's what it's all about, is that good feeling that you get and to flow with things. Flowing is very important, because once you start hitting roadblocks, it just brings you all the way down to zero energy, and you're just like, there's nothing else I can do. I'm done. Not even the white flag. Go ahead.
Well, and that's the other side of it that's so beautiful, right? As a manifesting generator, so it's a subset of generator, and you have a manifesting energy to you, right? So there is that need to respond, but there's also this component of, being able to really move forward and having to inform. The thing with the manifesting generator is they have to try it before they know for sure if it's for them. Right? So it's like, I got to test the waters. Let me see how this goes. And then once they're in it, they'll go, oh yeah, this is for me, or this is so not for me. Right? And so for a manifesting generator, it's really important that they don't necessarily commit to something until they've tried it.
Yeah.
Let me give it a go. Let's do a couple times through, see how it feels.
I did that a couple of years ago, how it felt, and the awkwardness and the goodness and the excitement and all of that. All the data were gathered without actually looking at it as data gathering at that time, because at that time I didn't know where exactly I fit. The data were gathered, and after that there was a flow, a push. It's like, here is 100%, this is bloody, you get your behind up and running, because we're moving. We're moving. Kathy, what are you exactly? I'm sure you did your own little what do you call that?
Mine just says type generator, and then all these numbers and stuff. So I don't really, I don't know.
Yeah, when you get a reading or a body graph, there's just a ton of information, and so learning how to read that is an important piece. But as a generator, what we're talking about, does that resonate for you?
I think so, but I don't. Everything I know about astrology resonates. I'm not even 100% sure what generator means. But these things, they feel really important to know about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to know like, oh, I shouldn't really commit to this 10-year thing unless I like it, right? That's like a key something to learn when you're young, to know how to operate in your professional life and relationships and everything. So yeah, mine just says generator. Is there anything else that lends to that?
Yeah, so probably pure generator. Is that?
It just says
Just
generator.
Okay, so depending on where you went, it might say something different. So when we look at, I'll just pull this up again for you guys for a minute. Okay,
Yeah,
so when we
look
look
at shapes on mine.
Yeah, do you have this right on your thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got it. Okay, so looking at that, you're an emotional generator. And I say that because the solar plexus here, if this is defined, this is the authority. It trumps everything else. Okay? If this
Inner
is
authority, emotional solar plexus.
You got it. You got it. So just looking at your graph, I can see that that's what it is, just because I recognize what's filled in and what's not, right?
Okay.
So then if the sacral is defined, then it means that you are a generator of some kind. Because the other types, the manifestor, the projector, and the reflector will not have this center defined. Okay. So when we talk about defined and undefined, my picture here has every one of them defined. And what that means is it's colored in. Okay. But if you could hold your chart up again, Kathy, because you had a center there that was not.
Yeah, okay. I have two that aren't colored.
Yeah. So you can see there that center kind of diamond one, that's the G center, our identity, love, and direction center. And at the very top there, that's the head center, or the crown chakra, right? And that one, those two for you are undefined. All of the rest of your centers are defined. So yeah, this is the other piece of it, right? When we understand what each of the centers mean, we understand what that definition means. So when we're defined in a center, it means that we have a consistent energy source in that center. We have a consistent way of moving the energy of that center around. We have a consistent way that we interact with it, right? When it's open, that consistency isn't there. We are open. We're more flexible. We're able to see different sides of things, but it also means that we're more open to conditioning, right? Because we're so open and able to see different sides and all of that, it's one of those things where we might find ourselves, for instance, with an open G center, you might find that in certain groups of people, you're kind of one way. In other groups of people, maybe you show up a little differently, right? You're going to be more flexible in the way that you identify depending on your environment.
Right? I can be really chameleon-like.
That is a perfect word for it, right? And somebody with an open G center is very much with that chameleon kind of energy, right? They're going to change throughout their lifetime with different things, right? Whereas I have a defined G center, and when I look at my life path, when we're talking about direction here, I, as a kid, wanted to be in a helping profession, whether that be a psychologist or a teacher or something like that. I could play that as a child, right? And then I, went through different things, ended up going to school for social work, well, for psychology and then for social work, and then ending up in counseling psychology at the end of it anyway. And in between there, I had some offshoots, right? I worked in construction for a little while. I did some finance for a bit. I did, I did some martial arts stuff with my ex. Like we did different things, but every time it didn't quite feel right. Right. And I always came back time and time again to this same path and this same direction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Somebody who's open will go, I'm done with that. I want to go try this now. Right. And there doesn't have to be a coming back to center. It's okay. They can go here and then they can go over there and then they can come back here and then they can go over here. And that's okay for them. Right? Because they're meant to be able to try different things and see what resonates at any given moment.
So that would also mean that it's important to find the thing that makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. And that thing that makes you happy might change over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to allow yourself to change with it.
So Ramsey, what's yours? Do you have that defined center?
I don't recall.
Let me pull up Ramsey's chart. Ramsey is defined.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I come back to the same thing. That's why I'm still here. I started, went off, and came back, and this is it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I move on, we have this is interesting. We'll try to talk about this before. Our projector, I only have 2 defined centers, heart and throat. Makes for an interesting life. How's that interesting? It's just those 2 that are working, which gives it.
They're all working.
No.
It's not that they don't work.
That's not what I meant, but yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we're looking at the identity, the G, and the throat, right? So it's these 2. So there's a channel in here connecting them that defines them. All of the rest of these centers here are open, right? So what that means with somebody who's so open like that is that they're very susceptible to the environment that they're in and the people that they are around, right? And in order to really feel grounded, let's go through. To feel grounded, to be able to manage emotions, to notice what is good for you or correct for you, to understand your willpower and drive, to understand how you organize your thoughts and feelings and where inspiration comes from, you have to be in the right environment.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Right? So every time there's an open center, we want to recognize what that center represents and how that openness leaves us open to conditioning. Right? So we look at, different ways that these come up for us. And if we go, okay, with, my open head center, right? Am I always trying to find solutions for other people? Am I always trying to figure out everybody else's problems that don't really resonate for me or have any kind of, influence over me, but I'm still trying to fill that role, right? For another. Or let's say you have an open root center. It's that pressure to grow, that pressure to evolve. Well, that pressure isn't coming from you, right? You're able to just go with the flow and allow things to come to you. But when it's undefined, all of that pressure is coming in from outside, and you have to be able to differentiate that. Right? And so it's interesting, right? Ra talks about human design as the science of differentiation. And that's really what this is about, right? Can I recognize what's actually me and all this stuff that's not me?
Which is so hard. Do people come to you like you would search out a therapist because you're having trouble, for you to solve, whatever, a relationship fell apart, or is this more helping to deal with people in the workplace or finding what where you should be working? You see what I'm saying? Is it like a fixing a malady kind of a mode, or getting you?
Yes and no. When we talk about fixing a malady, if living in our not self can be considered a malady, then yes. Right? Because we're giving ourselves permission to hold space for what's correct for us. Right? And that can involve, I mean, when we look at, all of the different aspects of what human design offers, we're just tapping the surface right now in this conversation. But we look at determination, we look at how we process information, we look at how information is pulled from us, we look at the environment in which we're able to thrive. We look at, connections and relationship and how other people's activations activate us and what that interaction looks like. We can look at, our determination also has to do with our digestion. So there's a whole personal health system that goes along with human design that we can look at to talk about, what is the best way for me to digest both what I consume physically and what I'm consuming mentally and emotionally, right? And what's the best way for me to take these energies in and allow them to process in a healthy way, right?
Wow. It seems like something that you should look into when you go to the doctor, right?
Wouldn't that be
if you feel like you got to call the doctor for any reason, well, first step over here to this office and we'll see if you're right, even remotely in the place that would make you happy.
Yeah. If you're living in such misalignment and allowing, the not self themes to come up, of course that's going to impact your health and well-being, right? I mean, if we look at generators, for both of you, there's signposts, right, that we have that kind of help us to know if we're living in alignment or not. And so, if you're in flow, Ramsey, you said you love flow. Well, Of course you do, right? Flow is the gift of the generator. We talk about the signature. This is satisfaction. If you're feeling satisfaction with what you're doing, you're on the right path. If you're frustrated, if you're feeling like you're enslaved, it is not for you.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
It's so funny because you just made such a big transition in your life. You probably have, these polar opposites to compare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And after that enslavement, I can breathe. I have my vision is stronger. I can see further. I can make decisions on the fly, open up certain things, drive success. It's night and day. It's night and day. And I know it's Mike. I like you could say, oh, that's his character. He's just so, but no, it has a lot with the science behind that in order to be able to define who the hell am I. Because it's a lot to take in, and once you understand it, man, it just changes your perspective on where you stand at any point in time and how you need to, or where you need to turn in order to gear your life in the right direction. And I know this had nothing to do with the human design. I was at a florist, which I thought she was like 50 years old. It turns out to be 78. And she looks at me and she goes, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm an accountant." She goes, "No, you're not an accountant. Accountants don't have this good energy in them. That's no you." And she's from Hong Kong. Just to, and she goes, "What's your sign? You're in the 1970." I go, "No, I'm 65. I'm a snake." She looks at me and she goes, "You no worry. You know where you find it. No worry." So, so you take the astrology out of it, into it, and then you take what you're showing over here, and I put them together, and they just fit because they're two parts of the same puzzle, that define or help me define who I am and what I do. You are not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. I'm not an accountant. I'm fake, Janet. I'm fake. I lied to myself for such a long time, but no, I'm not.
Mhm. Right? So when we look at something like that, right, you got yourself into this role. What was it that said you had to do that role?
Yes.
Right? And I'm sure that there was a lot of the mind getting in the way, saying this is what you should do, and this is going to make you successful, and this is going to, so on and so forth.
Yeah, there was the plan that was derived by society that I had to follow. You had to go to university, you have to finish university, and you have to do certain things, and so on and so forth to get to this point.
Yeah.
But what I realized that point is always moving. Bloody hell, it's always like you're running like this after it. At the same distance, it's like the donkey and the carrot. They show you it's in front of it, and it's it's constant, and you're running, and you're depleted. You just like kills you on the inside. And then when you find yourself, when you find those right people to do your charts, to understand more about yourself than you think you know. And by the way, 90% of us, we think we know who we are, but we know what others see who we are. It's not who we are. We see ourselves through the eyes of others, through the eyes of our family, society, friends, and so on. But this one actually takes everything away. It's not what people see you. It's not how they see you. It's who you truly are and how you fit within this puzzle called society or friendship or whatever it is, because it changes every time you jump. You change. You put on a different face, and then you play differently with the people around. And this kind of like, sorry, I went on a rampage, but
no, it's good.
This kind of helps you. It helps you understand that the mask you're wearing for today, it's to be here with this group of people so that you can bring your light into theirs and be able to create something together. And then when you move into another group of people, it's a different light that has to shine within that population so that everything could be cohesive and be able to work. At least that's how I saw it. I don't know, I'm still talking. Go ahead. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to post them. Jennifer and us, we're ready to answer any questions. Go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
For sure. No, I thought that was fantastic. And it's interesting, right? Because in human design, we can look at connection charts. We can look at how we change, right? Because all of a sudden now our connection with somebody brings in a different energy, and we tap into that energy. We can look at a penta, a family, a business, an organization, any kind of group, and go, okay, what's happening within this group? What has changed? What has shifted? What roles are people taking on? Right? They have what's called the Wa, which is, this bigger group of collective and all of that, and the impact that has on us and our energy.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's so much about how we do change. It's funny. I work with clients a lot, and we talk about, this process of, deconditioning, this process of being able to recognize these not self themes that come up within us and how we can start to release them and let them go. And then we talk about getting together with family. Right? And every time I go, I just fall right back into that same pattern. And I don't know why. Like, I've done all this work and I've made all this progress. And why am I doing this again? And it's like, well, let's take a look at that connection, right? What is getting pulled out of you there? What expectations are being put on you that don't serve you, that are not who you are, right? And how do we work to really change that?
Yes. Start with
which
sage.
is so hard, because then when one piece of that family puzzle makes a shift, then everybody's so uncomfortable and you don't fit anymore. And yeah, it's kind of impossible.
It's hard, right?
Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah. But good to know, good to recognize. And, you know, all families should do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, some people make us feel so good, right? You feel like you can do anything, right? Ramsey's so positive. I mean, everybody feels empowered around you, which is a lovely thing. I can do it. Yeah. Surround myself with Ramseys. So how do people work with you? How do people work with you? Do you come for a reading and then and then you're finished, or is it like, no, I'm working on this issue here? You know, how does it work? What does it look like typically?
Yeah, so they can do either. Like I said, a lot of people who do readings will kind of do a one and done reading. I don't ever recommend that. Though I will do them if somebody says, you know what, I only have the ability to do a reading. I just want to get what I can and go from there. But because I come from it, from this more mental health and wellness background, I really do believe that we need time to integrate. And I recognize that an overflow of information makes it so you don't really retain very much at all. Right? So ideally, if I'm doing it through psychotherapy, we're integrating it into our process, right? So we'll explore an aspect of it and recognize how that's showing up for them, and being able to challenge, you know, these kind of conditioned thinking or behaviors, and then kind of allow that person to go, you know, in between sessions and spend time with it, notice it, observe it. Right? Clients always say to me, you know, what's the most important thing? I'm like, observe. Awareness is the most important thing. And if we have that, we are golden. Right? And so I use the sessions to bring awareness and help them to recognize where these things resonate, and then allow them to experiment with it and come back and say, you know, I did this, and oh my goodness, for the first time ever, I actually listened to my sacral response, and awesome. And I made a decision that I would have never made with my mind, and things have unfolded rapidly. And I can't believe the changes that are happening.
Incredible then to have that support behind you. Hey, try this out. Okay, I can do it. And then to, you know, have the support, see that it works. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, all these modalities, if you want to call them, they all help us out to figure out who we are. And the best, like you mentioned, is to go in and observe how you fit. But that tool that you bring in help us open up to be able to see exactly what is happening. It's a very important tool, I feel, at least for myself, that it pushes you forward into your progress. It elevates you to a higher dimension, because once you're able to see, that's it. It goes. Once you put that light on a dark spot, it's gone. The boogeyman is gone. It disappears. Damn it.
Well, what I love about this too, so there's different systems that have come from human design, right? So we have human design, which is, I like to kind of see it as like the blueprint. Okay. But then we have the gene keys, which was a transmission from Richard Rudd, and he takes all of the gates, right, and makes them each a gene key. So each of the gates of the I Ching, all the way through, there's 64, they get brought in as gene keys. And what we get to look at with that is he really dives into the shadow aspect of that key, the gift, and then the siddhi, which is the enlightened kind of expression of it. And so what we get to do with that is we look at, okay, start with that sun sign for us. And you can start with your personality sun, because that's going to be the one you really resonate with the most, right? And you dive into it and you go, okay, what is this shadow, right, aspect? And we go, wow, okay, yeah, I can see how that comes up in my experience. All right, how do we embrace this shadow? And this is a huge piece. So for me, my shadow with my sun sign is dullness, right? So what does that mean for me, right? I avoid having a dull experience. I don't want to be mundane. I don't want to just have to deal with the day to day, right? I have this kind of resistance within me for that. All right, so my gift is magnetism. How can I get there if I don't embrace this shadow, right? But the moment that I'm actually able to embrace this in my experience, all of a sudden I realize that I don't have to avoid anything. It's sitting in that place of dullness that I go, I don't have to make a decision. I don't have to do that instead of this. It's okay. This magnetism is such that people can come to me. I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to make a change. I don't have to do anything. And it's such a beautiful moment where that shift happens, because now, instead of pushing that shadow away, I've embraced it, right? And embracing that, I'm able to actually realize and release my gift to the world.
Beautifully
right?
said. Yeah.
And so this is part of the work. So somebody who says, you know what, I really want to dive into doing some of the shadow work. Cool. We're going to run your human design, but we're also going to take a look at your gene keys, right? We're going to bring in, it's called the golden path, but there's different aspects to it. So you've got your genius path, you've got the Venus sequence, and you've got your pearl. And so each one of those is different. So your genius path is about unfolding the genius that you're meant to bring to the world and what that looks like, right? And what we have to work through in order for that to come to fruition, right? And to be able to actually realize that in our experience. We look at the Venus sequence, which is all about emotional growth, right? We're looking at our core wound. We're looking at, the emotional wounding throughout, from birth, through childhood and all of that, as we go through the Venus sequence. And we get to a place where we begin to understand how that wound shows up for us and how it holds us back from really being able to connect and really being able to be present in the world, right? And then we look at the pearl, which is all about, what we're here to do. We talk about vocation, right? What actually am I here to do and to bring to the world, right? And we look at that sequence and see what that looks like and how we bring that about, and so it's beautiful. And then for people who are entrepreneurs, or they're, in business, and they want to recognize, their strengths in business or the strengths of, their team, we have the success codex, which then really brings in, yet another aspect of what it is to be successful now in business, right? How do I attract people to me? How do I find, balance in my experience? What is it that I need to overcome, right? So there's so much.
Yeah, I know. A good point to take out of that is that once you are able to see It's never run away from your issues. You have to face them. You can never slay the dragon, although they're cute. You have to embrace them. You have to dance with your shadow.
Yeah.
To move forward in life. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in the backseat of a car, not having a control over anything. And this is one of the tools that you can use, or a steering wheel, to get you to where you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. You know, it's actually quite fascinating that you're using that as an analogy, because Ra uses an analogy of the car as well when he's talking about human design. And so we have basically 3 crystals, right? So we've got our personality crystal, our design crystal, and then what's called the magnetic monopole, which is kind of that connection to higher self, right? And ultimately, our personality crystal constantly wants to be driving the car, right? It's who we think we are. It's all the ego stuff. It's, you know, the conditioned thinking, all of that. It's like, get me behind that steering wheel. I know where we're supposed to go. Right? And so a lot of us live our lives letting that part of us take control, when ultimately it's that higher self energy, that magnetic monopole, that part of us that's connected to source, that actually follows our strategy and our authority and recognizes what's actually happening within us and within all of these systems. That's our decision maker, and that's our driver, right? And so my other website, which is Passenger Consciousness, that's what it's about, right? How to become the passenger consciousness, how to take that personality and say, you sit in the passenger seat, look out the window, personality. I've got this. Right? And letting that part of us that is that true self part thrive with, you know, in the driver's seat.
And that's passengerconsciousness.com?
.ca.
.ca.
I might have said .com, but it is .ca.
No, you didn't. I just assumed. That's my bad. So just put it up for everybody. Whoever wants to see it, it'll be, yeah, it's everywhere now.
There you go.
It's like, it's like,
love it, guys. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where can people reach out to you? I know, other than this one, is this your main website, or is there other places that they can connect? And
if they just want to look at, you know, human design, gene key, success codex, they want to do readings, which we can still do in little bits, even if we're not doing it through the mental health kind of perspective, then they can reach out through Passenger Consciousness, and that works. There's a ton of resources on there. I explain each of the systems. And then there's a whole section on books. So they're all like recommended material and things that you can get. I actually hope to soon be able to be putting a coloring book journal up on there as well, that I'm almost done. That really helps with contemplation of your design. So it kind of walks you through how to read it, how to understand it, and then gives insight into, you know, just contemplating what that feels like for you. Mm-hmm. If you want to look at the mental health side of my reality, that's myholisticself.com. So www.myholisticself.com or myholisticselfcounseling.com. And that's kind of my main business site.
My holistic stuff, holistic 1L?
Yeah.
I can't spell for beans. Plus, I can't see. It's too far. There you go.
I'm sure somebody could put it up there. Yeah, there you go. Tanis has got it too. Oh, yeah. You guys all have it up there. You're good. Mm-hmm.
That's good. And here, I love this chat. So interesting. Always so much to learn. Thank you so much for being with us. And I think we can do this. Yes, of course we can do that. That's the beauty of Mac.
I know, right?
It's not a computer. And before we leave, I know we're getting close to the hour, and I just wanted to talk about a few things. Next week, like we said, Tanis is going to be on. We have for Open Mic UK, June, we have the 13th, Paul Bouchon, who's a psychic medium from England. On the 27th, we have Suzette Clough, I think, I hope I did not butcher her name. She's, what was it? Holistic art?
Yep, visual medicine.
Visual medicine. Thank you. I do apologize. And July 10th, we have Paul Bannister from the UK, also a psychic medium. And we're looking for more guests to be online with us. We're having actually a blast getting this thing up and running with everyone, and we thank everyone for joining us, and the ones who actually agreed to be on the show with us, that including you. Although I stressed out that I had to text you 500 times to make sure that the timing is correct, because this one is made for the UK people at 7 o'clock. It's a more what do you call it? I was going to say realistic time, but a time where they can be on the show live with us. And hi, Fatima. Thank you for joining. Also, the show is moving all the way down to Lebanon. I've seen people connect over there. So it's from North America all the way to the east. So thank you all for being on the show one way or another. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at the same time. So that's awesome. And it's an interactive show, so you can post your questions while we're going live. Also, this week we have a Spirit Cafe. Spirit Cafe is on Saturday. You can, if you'd like to register. This is the 3rd out of 10 sessions this year. You don't need the prerequisites, so you can join it at any time at www.spiritcafe.ca. Again, .ca is not .com. And, what else do we have? Do you have anything that you would like to talk about? Some events that you're having coming up on your calendar?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Watch you. Here you go. Sorry, that's the wrong person.
No, it's all good. So actually, I believe it's next Monday. So every Monday, Tanis, who's going to be on next week with you, and I do Twillo Talk live. And it's just authentic spiritual conversation. So everybody and anybody is welcome to join us for that. That's also on YouTube and Facebook. And next week, we're going to continue. I'm kind of doing a monthly with Gerald Tarot Stash on human design. And so that will be next Monday at 2 o'clock Eastern. And we're going to be continuing with authorities. So anybody who wants to kind of dive in a little bit deeper on my website, on my YouTube channel, and on Gerald's as well, you can look at all of the back kind of videos that we've done. We've gone deep dive into each of the aura types already. We've talked about the centers, and now we're looking at the authorities. So that is there as well. So those are kind of the two upcoming things for me. And I just want to say thanks so much for having me on with you.
Thank you. And Kathy, you have something on Monday that you usually put up, the Chandra, I believe?
Yep. So Sundays or Mondays is the Chandra for what happens to be the most relevant conjunction happening in the sky, or where the moon is. And I pull in tarot, a little oracle reading that further explains the Chandras, which are they are channeled messages from a beloved wife who died to her husband. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us at Open Mic UK, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot, everyone.